SEMRush is a really popular and powerful tool, but it can be a little overwhelming when you're first trying to get the hang of it. So I'm going to hit the high points of a few of the areas that you'll spend the most time, or at least that I recommend spending the most time, and how you might go about using them. And so if you look at the navigation on the left-hand side, they do try to split this up for you a little bit. So competitive research, keyword research, more on link building, on-page, and tech SEO. Key areas, this domain overview is where I would usually be going if I'm looking at competitor websites and just trying to get a general overview of what's happening on that site. Let's use one of their examples. We'll use worldwildlife.org. When you click on that, you get a ton of information in here, right? There's a whole lot. You can see trends over time. One of the top things that I'm looking at, though, initially is going down to these top organic keywords, where you view the details, and then you could see the keywords that they're ranking for, the position, and how much volume they get. This is one of the things that I look at the most when I'm doing competitive research, not because I'm trying to copy someone else's keyword strategy, but really because I'm trying to just get a sense of how are people getting to the site? Maybe what content are they prioritizing on their site? Now, this obviously is not a business context here necessarily. It's more about wildlife, but it does give you a sense of what's going on. And then what I'll be doing usually is going into the amount of traffic potentially that they're getting, but more so even taking a look at the volume and sorting by volume here. And you could see, whoa, 151 million average monthly searches for this term. You can see how difficult the keyword is. And so these are the two columns where I'm spending the most time. And then what I would be doing from there is using some of these filters to try to understand what are really high volume keywords that maybe are not overly difficult. Now, that's a little bit subjective, but it does give you some examples here. So if I'm looking at a competitor website, I would want to know maybe from 1,000 average monthly searches up, and we put a million in there in this case. What are we seeing? So then we're filtering out all of the really low volume keywords, and then I'd be looking for a keyword difficulty. And again, they give you guides here. So I'd probably go from 0 to maybe 50 to start, just to get a sense of what's going on. And once you do that, then you can start to see, these aren't maybe quite where we would be getting to long tail keywords, but you can start to see things that you could maybe rank for. So palm tree in this example, right? These are interesting to me because they wouldn't be overly difficult to rank for, but they're still getting a lot of volume. And so I would be cross-referencing those things. So that's one of the things I would be doing with competitive research. One other piece with that too is that you can export all of this data. So if you like working in spreadsheets a little bit better, that is one thing I would consider. So I'm constantly exporting these, putting them in Google Sheets, combining different sites together in single spreadsheets, try to understand overall what's the landscape, what are some ideas of words that we could use, words are people using when they're trying to find what we do. That is one of the areas I'd really recommend you spend a lot of time in doing your research. And then the next piece, it's going to be kind of these 3 items mixed together for keyword research. So if you go into keyword overview, and I'm going to just do an example. Let's pretend I'm working with a consulting firm. We'll say I'm going to search for different words that I think are maybe related to what we do. So consulting, that's probably too broad. Let's say it's an environmental consulting firm or something. That's made up, environmental consulting, or maybe it's like eco consulting. This is all made up right now, but and I want to try to understand what the volume is for these words. I would start with a list like this. You might already have a list of target keywords identified that you think, yes, we want to rank for these things. That's where I would be putting this, because once you hit search, it's going to give you some of that same information that I was telling you about in the competitive research, where you're looking at the volume for the search, and then the keyword difficulty. And if you look at this, obviously consulting is incredibly difficult and very broad. So that wouldn't really be a term that I would recommend focusing on. If we start to get a little bit narrower, environmental consulting, you'll see it's still fairly difficult, but it has a lot of volume. So that's good. Eco consulting is pretty good. There's not a whole lot of search volume for it, so it may or may not be relevant, but it would be pretty easy to rank for. So if you felt like that was really in the sweet spot of what you offered, I would add that to your target list for at least a page on your site. It's not a ton of volume, but those people are likely pretty well qualified. From here, you can then use the keyword magic tool. There are basically two ways in for the keyword magic tool. One, you could just click on keyword magic tool over here. It'll give you one line and you can type in the word, or you can then click on one of these terms. And then this is basically taking you into like this information here is related to that keyword magic tool. So it's almost the same thing. So it's giving me all of this detailed information about this particular keyword, more info on it. I said, I think this would be a decent target, but it's maybe a little bit too difficult for my liking. That's where I would be looking at these keyword ideas here. So here are specific variations for the keyword and then questions related to that. This type of thing is great for those people also ask type of questions on Google. So if I go here, let me just copy this and go to Google. You'll start to see we have these people also ask questions. So if your industry is really ripe for answering questions like that, which a lot of them are, this is something I would be thinking about when you're generating content. To then explore and get into this keyword magic tool, I will click View All 12,000 some keywords, and you'll see we've now switched into keyword magic tool. What's great here is that it's going to give you a list of other similar terms related to this, and what I'm looking for is what are some words that are commonly searched that still align with what we're offering, that have a reasonable search volume and a very, not a very high difficulty. And so my process would be pretty similar to what I talked about before, where I'm starting with looking at volume from highest to lowest, and then maybe we want to filter by keyword difficulty here. Most of these are actually pretty reasonable. But let's go in here. Let's filter by keyword difficulty. Again, let's do from 0 to, we'll do 0 to 50 still. That might be a little bit too high. Let's do 40. Difficulty of 0 to 40. And you can start to see that we have a lot more information here. So environmental consulting firms, we already talked about. We see that people are searching for jobs related to that. So maybe that's not related to, business development or anything like that, but recruiting is important to your business. I would think about something like that as a target keyword for one of your jobs pages, something like that. This seems to be a branded term, so you wouldn't be going after that. More for recruiting. And then there's more here, environmental consultancy. There you go. That's a really good opportunity right there. Still, some search volume with, a possible level of difficulty there. And so I would just be going through here and trying to identify words that I feel like would be useful. And then from there, this is where you'll see there's this little plus here. If you click on that, that is going to add that word to a keyword list, which is in this keyword strategy builder. I think recently they changed the name of this. I forget what it was called before. Keyword manager, I think. And now it's keyword strategy builder. So if I go in here, I can actually create a new one. So let's say I wanted to create a new list. If you hover over it and you click these little lines right here, you can create a new empty list. So I'm going to call it environmental consulting. Great. So I go there, and if I go here, then I can just click on this, and you're going to start adding all of these words to the list. Let's see. We already added that. Let's add one or two more. Environmental health and safety consultant. Interesting. Okay, that's a good one there too. Great. So I've added those words to what used to be called keyword manager. Now it's called keyword strategy builder. If I click in there, you're going to see that I can go to that particular list. Now here, now you have a curated list of terms where you think that these could be good targets. That's usually the mindset that I have when I'm here. I'm thinking, I haven't 100% decided on these. These are keyword targets I might want to go after. I would build this list, and then within that, think about tags. So maybe, like we were talking about, some of these are jobs focused. You might want to create a tag here, and you would call this, you might want to do this based on your audience. So for this one, maybe we say recruiting. And then for this, maybe we say, maybe this is related to just like the business overall. And then maybe you would have another one if you have different industries you target or service lines or products or something like that. You might want to tag those as well. And you can start to imagine then as you build this longer list that all of these things can then work together to help you kind of keep things organized, ideate, and then determine your strategy. So When you have officially determined all of your keywords, that is when you're going to be going into projects. Now, I'm not going to go into that a whole lot, but essentially what you do is you go into projects, you create a project for your site, and that is where you could add specific keywords that you want to be tracking. I would do that when you have your list very curated, you're all done. We're still kind of in exploratory mode here. You might be exporting this and working in spreadsheets as well. So that's what I would be thinking about there. So projects then becomes ongoing tracking. The other piece related to that project that you would end up using would be a site audit. In here, a site audit, it makes you, pick a particular site. I'm not going to go through all of those right now, but that gets tracked at a project level. So when you go in there and you hit audit site, it's going to give you a list of suggestions and things to work through. That tends to be a little bit more on the technical side of things. So do be prepared to get, a list that sometimes looks a little bit scary, but you can use that to work with your designer development team to help optimize things. So this is just an example overview of some of the things in SEMRush. Hope that it's helpful. If you have any questions, certainly don't hesitate to reach out. Thanks.